Hello and welcome to another Doctor Who Big Finish video. In today's Doctor Who Big Finish video, I'll be reviewing Mahogany Murderers, which is the pilot episode to the Jago and Litefoot series, and is in fact the most well-sold Companion Chronicle Big Finish I've ever done, and rightly so, because it's Jago and Litefoot. And if you've followed my channel for a long time, you'll know that I absolutely adore these two Victorian gentlemen, and they are probably some of my favourite Big Finish stuff, what Big Finish I've ever done. So without further ado, I'm off to have a pint at the Red Tavern with Jago and Litefoot. So yeah, cue the opening title sequence. So, taking a look at the presentation for Mahogany Murderers, so I have to say I really like this cover. I like the purple effect on it. So we've got Jago and Litefoot there, and we've got this nice sort of purple sky there, and we have Westminster in the background, then we have Jackie Oval, and of course we have a lantern there which is rather nice. And again we have this nice smoke effect there, Companion Chronicles. Then we have the Investigators of Infernal Incidences, and we have the Doctor Who banner there, but instead of having the TARDIS or a Doctor face, we have got Litefoot and Jago, which is a really nice touch, I think. The spine and the back of the release, so if you want to know more about the story, then do feel free to pause, and the total running time for this story being 1 hour. So opening up the leaflet, we have a nice bit of writer's notes by Andy Lane there, and production notes by David Richardson, and we have a nice photo of Trevor Baxter and Christopher Benjamin, and of course we have credits for the release and advertisement for Doctor Who magazine, so you can see how old this release is because Matt Smith is the Doctor. And of course we have a little bio on Henry Gordon Jago and Professor George Litefoot. And the disc art is essentially the John Pertwee time vortex. So before I go into my overall thoughts on this release, I just want to stress this point. This is the pilot episode for Jago and Litefoot, so if you're thinking of getting into the Jago and Litefoot series, then please do pick up Mahogany Murderers first, because it essentially sets up the series, and it sets up the main villain for Series 1, so by the time you get to the Series 1 finale of Jago and Litefoot, you'll be a bit confused now. Who is Dr. Tulp? So honestly, do get Mahogany Murderers before you listen to Series 1. Just that's my bit of advice there. So what do I think of Mahogany Murderers? Well, I think you can guess that this review is going to be extremely positive, as this sparks my love for Jago and Litefoot, because when I first listened to this story, I just didn't want it to end. It was one of those stories where I was just like, please, keep going, I just don't want you to finish. And once I finished listening to this story, within 10 minutes of finishing listening to this story, I had ordered the first 2 series. So Mahogany Murderers is just a story I fell in love with, and I've listened to this story on numerous occasions, and personally I think that this is a great story to listen to on a cold winter's night. It's just perfect for this time of year, with obviously winter around the corner. It's just one of those stories what you just want to listen to in the winter. It's just a nice cosy listen in my opinion. Now the Mahogany Murderers broke the mould in terms of the Companion Chronicle range, as it featured Jago and Litefoot, who are technically not Doctor Who companions but soon came to be companions in our hearts. And the Mahogany Murderers continue to break the mould in terms of Companion Chronicles, because this story does not feature the Doctor at all. The story just focuses on Henry Gordon Jago and Professor George Litefoot having an adventure. Part 1, so this is the pilot episode, so you'd think that this story would spend most of its time setting up the characters and the plot, and it does that to a degree, but it doesn't dwell on the fact, this is the start of something incredibly special, as Andy Lane gives us little teasers of previous infernal investigations those two gentlemen have been on, and you can tell that time has passed since Jago and Litefoot's last escapade. And what's quite nice is obviously Jago and Litefoot are reacquainting themselves with each other, but also you as the audience are reacquainting yourself with the characters themselves. So it's a quite nice way of, obviously, Jago and Litefoot are meeting each other again for a brief period of time where they haven't seen each other, and obviously it's been, 30 years since the Talons of Weng Chiang, so it's quite nice for you as a listener to get reacquainted with those characters as well, so it's a clever way of doing it. Now the format, now this being a Companion Chronicle, which if you don't know is essentially a enhanced audiobook, which I think really aids this story, as this story has narration, what really builds the dark, grimy Victorian world, from Litefoot's morgue to the hustle and bustle of the Red Tavern, to Jago wandering by the river. So Andy Lane does a really great job of setting the mood for this scene, and I really do like the structure of how this story is told, from our investigators recounting events what have happened with the story, weaving Litefoot's and Jago's side of the story together, which is a simple and effective way of telling the story. So the first 5 minutes are essentially, set up with it featuring Lisa Bauman as Ellie, who would later become a key role within the series. So once you've had a few jokes between Jago and Lightfoot begins to set to the story. So the first half of episode 1 is essentially Lightfoot's side of the story, with a rather unusual body arriving in his morgue, which creates mystery. And the body, I will say, is rather freaky and quite unnerving, with this strange bald man with glasses visiting Lightfoot. And no, I don't think it's Harry Hill, it is that mysterious Dr. Tolport I've mentioned before. And of course, we do have some fun interruptions from Jago criticising the way Lightfoot is telling the story, saying he isn't much of a thespian. So then that leads into how Jago is involved within this story. So then we begin Jago's side of events with him exploring a creepy warehouse by the river full of electrical equipment. And you really do get to see the two styles of investigation. So from Lightfoot being very direct, and you get Jago visiting a few constabularies for some Dutch courage. And the cliffhanger for this story is brilliant. And you think that, wow, that's really sinister and really creepy. But then you get Jago having this brilliant one-liner, what breaks the moment. And honestly, it makes me smile, and you might think, well, that's really dampened the cliffhanger, but it's just a really funny cliffhanger, that it's kind of sinister and funny at the same time. It's rather unusual, but it's brilliant. I love it. It just makes me smile every time I listen to it. Part 2 continues to be amazing, with this part more focusing on Jago's story, with it connecting with the wooden mannequins, and we see how it all ties up with Lightfoot's story. Now this part, I have to say, has more of a rich and sinister atmosphere, as this part does have many jokes, and with us getting some great action moments and a thrilling conclusion. This story does leave one big question open, which is all about Dr. Tolp, but you'll have to wait until Series 1 to get those answers. And we finally get the answer about Jago's jacket. Overall, I think this is a great conclusion with a rather beautiful ending. So moving on to the characters now, I will say the interactions between the characters are utterly fantastic, considering they hadn't played these parts for 30 years, and obviously Christopher Benjamin and Trevor Baxter hadn't seen each other since filming Talons of Weng Chiang. You honestly wouldn't believe that, because it's just so timeless how they just slip into the roles effortlessly, and there's just a beautiful chemistry between those two characters, and obviously two actors as well. So if we start off with Henry Gordon Jago, so Christopher Benjamin, fantastic performance by Christopher, as Jago shows his prowess as he is a showman and puts Lyford down for trying to do voices, which is pretty funny. And Christopher Benjamin and Andy Lane really have captured the flamboyancy of Jago with the extravagant vocabulary, and he's definitely the comic relief within this story. But this being a companion chronicle, we do get the two actors playing various parts within the story. So Christopher Benjamin does a fabulous job bringing Jack Yeovil and all of his gang to life. It's just brilliant, and honestly, Christopher Benjamin really does excel within part 2. So moving on to Professor George Lyford, obviously played by the late great Trevor Baxter. Another excellent performance with Trevor Baxter, really helping build the tension with us seeing how the sharp wit of George Lyford, and getting a real strong moment towards the climax of the story with us seeing how precise and detailed Lyford is within wanting every part of the story to be told in order. We also get to see the differences between Lightfoot and Jago, because obviously Lightfoot is a man of learning, and much like Christopher Benjamin, Trevor Baxter does voice other characters, and he does voice a policeman, and that's quite entertaining, to be honest, especially with the scene what precedes that after, which is great. It is just so wonderful. What are my overall thoughts on the Mahogany Murderers? Well, I think that this is a fantastic little tale which has a lovely comedy, great atmosphere, and great interplay between the two main characters, with a few nods to the Talons of Weng Chiang, which is to be expected. And this is a clever way of using the companion chronicle format, with obviously using both characters to their own advantage. So we have Lightfoot having his own little story, so it's kind of 3 stories in one. So you get sort of Jago's story and Lightfoot's story all weaving in to make one story, and obviously we have the whole sort of business in the Red Tavern. So it's kind of 3 stories in one. It is just a wonderful story, and you can definitely tell that this is the start of something incredibly special. So as you can tell, I just love this story. It's one of my favourite Big Finish releases, so I guess you know what the rating's going to be. So I'm going to give Mahogany Murderers a well-deserved 10 out of 10. It's just a wonderful pilot episode, and will definitely get you hooked and wanting more Jago and Lightfoot goodness. It's just a phenomenal story, full of atmosphere, and honestly it's just worth it just to listen to the interplay between Jago and Lightfoot, because honestly it is one of the strongest out there. It is just magnificent. Honestly, it's one of the best companion chronicles, and honestly, you don't feel like you've been listening to this for an hour. It just feels like you've listened to this for about 20 minutes. It's just a fun adventure with great comedy, and honestly, I just love it. It is just a phenomenal special release, and yeah, definitely recommend Mahogany Murderers. It's just a wonderful story. I can't praise it enough. So yeah, that concludes this video. I hope you have enjoyed it, and hopefully this will be the start of my Jago and Litefoot reviews, because I know a lot of people have been asking, can you review Jago and Litefoot? So if this video does well, then you can expect more Jago and Litefoot reviews in the near future. So without further ado, that concludes this video. I hope you have enjoyed it, and I'll see you in my next video, which will be a surprise Big Finish review. Yes, it won't be a current Big Finish, it'll be something from the back catalogue. So I'll leave that for you to ponder, and I'll see you next time. So thank you very much, and goodbye.